Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Blackbar. I am Caleb, and I am here with two of the most wonderful audio people I've ever had the chance to work with, unfortunately, because I have next to no idea what I'm doing. So I wanted to get some people in here who actually knew what they were talking about, specifically when it comes to church live stream mixing. It's a question we've been getting quite a bit. Most churches have some amount of setup in their building when it comes to putting their audio to the house, but mixing specifically for the stream, which so many churches have had to do these days, is a bit of a whole other beast altogether. So we wanted to get the people involved in doing that at my church. That is Pastor Drew McElhenny and Jonny Buffum. Why don't you introduce yourselves real quick?
Yeah, as you said, I'm Drew. I'm the worship arts pastor here at the church, Grand Rapids First, and oversee obviously all the different worship things that happen, and also have a big part of tech and overseeing that, and Corden, our tech director, and obviously Jonny, who's a part of tech, as well as all the different folks that we have. So, but love being here, and thanks so much for having me a part of this.
For sure.
I'm Jonny. I'm part of the tech team. Cord's my supervisor. I do a bit of visuals, lighting, and I mix broadcast audio here.
Awesome. Wonderful. So, for the sake of the format today, we're going to go kind of a fair, good, better, best when it comes to live stream audio, because there's a lot of churches in a lot of different situations right now. Mm-hmm. Some of them are running just their iPhone audio in their living room, and others of them have like full setups with extra boards and everything. So we'll start at the very beginning, the cheapest setup, and then we go to the most expensive option. Sound good?
Yep, sounds
wonderful.
Great.
All right, so the cheapest, easiest option that anybody can get set up and running is the one sitting in all of our pockets and just recording with our phones. Possibly we have a DSLR and using the on-camera mic there, right? This is, I think we could all agree, probably the worst case scenario, but it's better than nothing. So if I'm in currently that situation and I'm unhappy with the mix that I have going on, if you want to call it that, what's the best option without me spending an arm and a leg to getting a better sound out of that system?
I think the biggest thing that, people are probably running into, or the question that they're trying to figure out, is why does it sound echoey, right? Or why does it sound like I'm in this cave, right? Mm-hmm. And it's, frankly, because of, not having the mic as direct. And so the question is there other options? And the beauty is for iPhone, they make tons of different options when it comes to iPhone solutions. And I know there's a lot of different microphones that you get, but I know they also make a lot of different interfaces too.
Yeah, I know Focusrite makes an interface, and there's a lot of iPhone mixers, whether they're 2-channel or 4-channel, or sometimes even 6-channel. Even if you can get one mic up, or maybe even two, and get some clean sounding source, that'd be a lot better than iPhone, because a big problem with phones and laptops and cameras is that if there's any sound that's decently loud, it'll just blow out the preamp and it'll sound very distorted and echoey.
Yep. Well, and to think for the iPhone, right, I'm pretty sure that the iPhone mic, when you're shooting it towards somebody, the actual main microphone is either shooting down or even away from the source. So it really doesn't help. So when Jonny mentions getting a clean source, it's about getting the mic closer to the source and having a better mic at the source. And as Jonny said, there are really a lot of options. I know, Shure makes some mics that literally you can plug straight into your iPhone, but if you can get a cable, something that you plug an interface or plug into an interface and bring it closer. We were looking at, I think that Focusrite one, you could plug up a guitar and a microphone. I mean, and boy, that's going to be super ideal. And I know the other problem too that people run into is a lot of the iPhone stuff is really quiet. And so by getting one of these mics, usually there's an application or something that you download with it, and then you turn that on and you can get levels, so your level's actually hot enough, so it's not half the level it should be, but it's actually loud enough to where people can hear it on their iPhone, or they can hear it on their computer without having to turn their volume up all the way.
I know when I've had to record on a phone before, just like messing around on my phone, I'll often like cup the mic to be pointed the right direction. Yes. Because I know it's like that mic is pointed that direction and I'm shooting in front of me. I know one of the things we've talked about on Blackbar before is also eliminating extraneous noise, especially if you're like in a living room in your house.
It's huge.
If you've got a refrigerator going, if you've got your air conditioning going, even if you hear birds chirping outside, that will all make it into the mix eventually if you're not careful about. So as many of those noises you can eliminate. I don't know, I mean, I could think of some solutions for the birds, but that's probably not a good idea. So for the most part, eliminate what you can and roll with the rest.
I think too, to that same point, obviously what's really unique is some people, a lot of churches right now are going in between this, they're only doing church for their online stream, and then some are able to have church in their building. And so I think that each one can, example, if you're focused just for online, maybe a different location than your sanctuary or worship center. Absolutely. It might be a better idea to go to a place that is a little bit more quiet, that has a little less reverb in the room, especially if you're simplifying how many people you have on stage and what you're doing from that end. But I think that's key, is you got to go, okay, what best suits our need, and maybe changing to a different space is going to help. Obviously not for a Sunday morning service, but or at least in the building. But
I'd love to see a full church of people just in the living room and see how that works out. But we gotta get the audio right.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, a step up from just a mic on your phone or a DSLR or something like that. We've got a lot of churches with a really basic analog, like 8 or 16 channel board. And all the outputs that they have are just the left and right mains that they're sending to their house. And what we've seen a lot of churches doing is splitting off those mains and sending that straight to their stream. Exactly what they were mixing for the house is what is coming in for the stream. So obviously we know that's not necessarily as ideal, but given if that's the situation we're in, what are ways that we can improve the stream, and why is it necessarily a bad thing to just send what you're sending to the house to the stream?
So one of the problems that comes with that is often when you're mixing in a room, what you hear doesn't necessarily translate as well when you listen through a computer or through an iPhone or through headphones. And so there have been often times when we couldn't meet as a church together, and I would be mixing front of house in the room, and a good way to battle that is put your headphones on and reference what it will actually sound like through headphones, because oftentimes it'll sound dry and less treated, and it may be quieter.
Right.
So that's a basic step, is put some headphones on and see what it sounds like.
Absolutely. And I know our front of house engineer, Mike Fusaro, I know in general, as we were sending we've done that for a long time, and just recently kind of changed our approach to that. But we had our direct feed from our board coming onto our stream, and I know Mike was really intentional with going, okay, what are some things I can do to make the stream sound better, that in the house you might not actually notice the difference as much, but to my computer speakers or to a laptop or to my iPhone or a pair of headphones, it's going to make a world of difference. And even something as simple as in a room, a mono mix. I know there's a lot of churches that their setup isn't stereo.
Sure.
It's just mono. And in a room, mono, it's mono versus stereo. Obviously there is a difference, and stereo is fantastic in a room, but compared to like a pair of headphones, mono and a pair of headphones versus stereo, I mean, we're in two different ballparks. Absolutely. Just two different ballparks. And so I think that's huge. I think referencing what it sounds like in headphones and what it sounds like, and I think the other thing too is it's not just a once and done thing. This is like you keep reviewing
all the time.
Yeah, and that's, we do that now. Every week, we're always improving what we can do. We're re-listening and going, okay, what can we do to lift it even more? What can we do to make this even clearer? And that, I think that's a big part of that, or at least the first step.
So if I'm getting a mix based on what I can do with the board, and maybe that's the mix of the house, and I'm taking those signals and I'm bringing it into an audio interface into my computer, what are some easy ways that I can improve the sound of the mix for the live stream if I still have to make a good sound in the house?
So probably some good steps are to bring it into your DAW and start with EQ, and maybe boost some frequencies that you're losing from the house, or maybe take some out that are too prominent. And then a good way to finish up your mix is with limiting, and just basically just getting it up to a good volume so that people aren't having to turn up their TVs super loud or just crank their headphones. And that's a good starting point.
Yeah, and if you don't have a DAW, I know that a lot of people are using OBS to put their their stream into, and I know OBS, I believe, takes VSTs right into it. Yeah. So there's a lot of plugins that are available that you can do that EQing, you can do that limiting through, which is really going to change your whole mix. And the key is I'm not just listening to how do my speakers sound in my room, and really it's second to that. You're going, okay, let me record it on the stream, let me listen to it, let me adjust it so my stream sounds better. And that's kind of the key, is obviously you're taking whatever's coming out of your house and now you're translating it in such a way that really you want it to sound the way it sounds in your room, the way it sounds in the house, to translate that same way on the stream. And so I think that's a great option that really a lot of people could get started with. And I know there's a lot of free plugins, so if you look up online VSTs for EQ, or VSTs for compression, or VSTs for limiting, you're going to find tons of stuff, or tons of different plugin makers out there. If you look up EQ plugins or VSTs, you're going to find Waves, and you're going to find UAD, and you're going to find all these different brands out there that you can go purchase plugins for pretty cheap. It makes a big difference on your mix.
So one of the ways that we've had people take in audio in the past, they usually are coming right into an interface, and then they're typically going straight into OBS from there. Now, the cool thing about OBS, other than the fact that it's free, which is insane, is that it can take in VST plugins straight in, and you can install them if you have them from wherever else, and you can do audio effects like EQ, limiting, and compression, all that kind of thing. One of the issues that almost we hear ubiquitously all over the place is our audio is too quiet. We're not getting enough volume to the stream. I have to turn up my volume on my TV to 100 to be able to hear what Pastor is saying. But then when the worship team starts playing, it's blowing my eardrums out, right? So is there an easy way that we can resolve this issue using OBS or VSTs or anything like that?
When it comes to limiting or getting that level up, right, really similar to compression, we're setting a threshold and we're telling this level to hit this ceiling but don't distort.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of different options when it comes to that. There's the L2, there's the L3 by Waves, and those are great plugins that you can get really affordable. And I know there's a lot of different options with that, and it's something that everybody should do at some level, especially if you're going into an OBS. You should be setting a limiter, even if you're not doing a deep threshold, just to make sure you're not catching, you're not hitting any peaks.
Right.
And it just saves you, right? So even if you're just touching, you're not distorting. And so it's a really key option, or it's a really key point in making sure that your mix is acceptable online and people aren't having to crank it up. The other thing too is, and some of these plugins are pretty intelligent, but doing multi-band limiting is a really big thing, where you bring down this threshold, but as you bring down the threshold, it's not just looking at the whole EQ spectrum, but it's looking at each band of frequencies, and it'll turn down a set of frequencies based on what's coming through, and hopefully even help your mix sound a little better because of that.
So the third tier of mixing for live stream that we're talking about now, we've upgraded from an on-camera mic, we've upgraded from the old school 8-channel analog mixer, and now we're talking about a digital board, a mixing platform. You've probably got a lot more channels on this thing, and the big difference is that it has a output out where we can get individual tracks coming out via MP3 or Firewire or whatever, something like that. So I know a lot of churches might have a digital board and they have no idea that it's a digital board. Is there a good way of finding out, like, if I can get individual audio outputs from the board that I'm using?
A quick search on the web is obviously a good place to start, but what you're looking for is, does it have an output card? Sometimes it's called an output card, or a recording card, or does it have USB on it? A lot of times that'll tell you. If it's got a USB port, very likely it's for recording. I know some boards have it where you can record just a stereo mix with a thumb drive, but then obviously you have the other options where literally you can take a USB out, go into a computer. A lot of these boards can do up to 32 channels in and out through USB, and then some of the older boards might have Firewire, but the best way to do it is go online, go to one of these stores that you could buy it from, and just look at the bullet point list and see if that's in there, because a lot of these boards have them. Even if you don't have a board, I know we talk about digital, some of the boards that even don't have moving faders or digital faders, may have the capability to still actually record those channels.
If you do have one of these boards that can output individual tracks via USB or FireWire or anything like that, and we can take it into a computer or board, this obviously opens up a lot of opportunities when it comes to live stream mixing in general. You want to talk about now we're kind of in the best of the best sort of situation for mixing.
Yeah, this is a really good scenario because now you have control over all of your tracks. And now things that may not translate well in the house, now you can change those and EQ those to fit them better for online.
And I think when it comes to that translation, the tools that are available, really plugins or VSTs, as some programs call them. So I guess the starting point is you need to make sure that you have what's called a DAW, right, a digital audio workstation. And I mean, there's Pro Tools, there's Logic. I think GarageBand might have the capability to actually output as well live. We're at Cubase. There's a ton. Ableton, right? So I mean, the list goes on and on when it comes to those. But you can take in, as Jonny said, you're able to focus that mix on translating to the stream, and now not worrying about it sounds like there's too much reverb in the room. Well, now it sounds too dry, on the online mix. Well, now I can add more reverb to make it sound proper for the online mix. And so, but Waves is a great company that has a lot of different plugin options. There's a Plugin Alliance that has a bunch of stuff. What's some of the others that are out there? Sound Toys is one of them. You have Isotope, which has Ozone and mastering plugins, and a lot of them have these suites that you can get that have all the plugins all in one. So sometimes that's a great way to start, is go ahead and get a pack that has your EQ, it has compressors, and a lot of times you don't need the most expensive plugin. A lot of times you just I call them utility plugins, but they get the job done. They don't maybe have a lot of character to them, but they're perfect for utility. And a lot of times just utility gets you really, really far.
So the advantage now of having a individual outputs from your board is that we can now essentially make a whole other complete separate mix from whatever's going to your house, and we can get that sounding perfect for our live stream, independent of whatever is happening in the sanctuary or whatever you got going on. So we've talked a little bit about kind of mixing in a DAW, pulling that straight into a computer. Obviously the alternative is well, I guess in addition to, we have something like what we're doing right now, which as far as I know is as close to the best of the best kind of situation you can be in, where you have a whole second board where you're mixing in a completely different room, isolated from the main sanctuary, and are getting like a perfected sound specifically for the stream.
So what I'm doing basically is all of the inputs that Mike is getting at front of house, I'm getting as well in the studio. And so now I have complete control over every single instrument, and I'm fine-tuning every single channel to get it exactly how I need it. My mastering chain, I'm EQing exactly how I want it to. I'm compressing, I'm limiting to get it up to the perfect loudness that I need it to be. And so that's pretty much an ideal situation because it gives you maximum control over your sound.
And I think the other thing that's really cool about the studio, as you said, super ideal setup. We're in a separate room. We're really able to focus on the audio. Some other things that are neat is Jonny has a feed that comes in, so he can actually see the live feed that's coming in and be able to translate not just what it sounds like, but what does it look like and what does it sound like, and are those matching, and feeling like those are going together. But we got a room that's treated, so we got a pair of speakers. So when you get into this next level, you get into studio speakers. And I know a lot of people see studio speakers and go, well, what's the difference in studio speakers and a nice pair of speakers I could buy from Best Buy or whatever it might be? And the biggest difference is these speakers that we have in here are very flat, meaning that there's no extra bass boost. So a lot of these systems that you get, they're EQ'd to try to make the music sound a little better.
Right.
And you want a pair of speakers, though, that's not making your music sound better. You want a pair of speakers that's flat, and the purpose of flat is that I can make the sound in here translate to a laptop, I can make it translate to a TV. You can listen in a car audio system. You can listen in a pair of headphones. No matter where you go, it's going to sound a lot more even and balanced. And so that's a big advantage when you move into this space, is you're able to control a lot more of those items, because you can because you have a flat pair of speakers to be able to bounce it off of. And so, as Johnny said, you can do those individual channels, but now it's going to translate way better than it did in the house system that was EQ'd to try and make it sound even better, right?
Quick lightning round, because I can see these questions filling up our comments already. If I want this super ideal situation and I want a board that can output all of the tracks individually so I can mix it in DAW, what is a really good option that you would push people towards?
I think that the key is making sure, one, that you're able to take in those channels. Coming into another room definitely provides an interesting variable, because a USB cable, for example, if you're coming out of your console, you're not going to be able to go 100 foot with that USB cable. So making sure that you have a way to get into the board is a good start, or getting into your DAW rather. Is a good start. But I would really recommend, so we use Pro Tools here and we love it, and that's our DAW choice just because that's what we've grown up with, that's what we love. But Logic, I know, is really a really great one that I know a lot of people are using, as well as Ableton are probably I would say the top three when it comes to that. And I know that there's a lot of templates out there that people have created that maybe is a good starting point, especially if you haven't done a lot of EQ or you haven't done a lot of compression or are kind of unfamiliar with that. Boy, that's a great way to get into it. And I know, again, you probably search the web on a lot of this stuff, but templates are a great way to have everything that you need and then start to tinker with it until you get the results that you want.
Another good thing about working in a DAW is that you can record everything.
It's great.
And so what I do every single week is I record everything that I can, and then I'll come back, play it back, make changes, and if something's not sitting quite right, I'll fix it, because I have all the time in the world because I recorded everything and I can change it whenever I need to. So that way I'll come back that Sunday and the change will already be made and it'll already be sounding nice.
So if I want all of the individual outputs coming out of the board in the house, if I want to move to a board that has a USB out, what is a relatively inexpensive board that you would suggest for churches?
Yeah, so I know that Behringer makes their X32 line. A lot of churches have that board removed to it because it's very appealing. It's got a lot in it for the price. And I know they make a lot of different versions of that console too. They make like I think it's called XR18 or something. It's like a smaller channel. They even make a rack mount version. And really, we haven't talked too much about this, but that could be an ideal option for some people that maybe aren't comfortable in a DAW. Is
Sure.
actually, and I know some churches that are doing that right now, where they're actually mixing on a separate board setup and doing all their EQ, all their compression on that board, and doing a separate mix with studio monitors and getting some good results with that too.
Speaking of studio monitors, if I don't have a huge budget and I want to get some monitors that are worth their money, is there a certain model that you send people towards?
I'd probably say, what do you think, the Yamaha HS series?
Yeah,
that's a good starting point. I actually use Yamaha HS5s at home to produce music, and I've never complained about them. They work great for me.
Yep. Yamaha makes a really, it's been a solid product throughout the years. That's kind of what they have an old pair of speakers, these NS10s, which are famous, and then they built this HS series kind of based off of these NS10s. They're white and black speakers, right? And they're kind of famous. You'll see them in the studios. But those, I know Rocket makes some great speakers, really very affordable, and they got, as Johnny mentioned, like a 5. They make like a 5-inch cone. They make a 5.5-inch cone sometimes, and then an 8-inch cone. And so depending on what you can afford, again, those speakers are tuned to help you. And something that's really important with speakers, and something, Johnny, I know that you take really care of watching and hear, is making sure that you don't run it too loud when you're mixing. They actually say a rule of thumb is around 80 dB And so get a dB meter. They aren't expensive. You can go on Amazon. I think we'll pick one up probably for $25, you know. And make sure you're running around 80 dB. I think a lot of people are going to be shocked that 80 dB is not very loud.
No.
It's all of a sudden you're going to mix there and go, wait, this is as loud as I can mix. But what they say is as you start turning up the frequencies, your ears start to adjust to those frequencies, and you may go, well, I think I need to turn up some highs, and you start turning up some highs, but in all reality, your ears are adjusting because it's too loud. Sure. And so 80 dB, they say, is where your ears hear best as far as the frequency spectrum. And so that's probably another key with those speakers. But studio monitors, they're a great investment.
So when I am doing that mixing, another question that will come up is, where should I be mixing? Obviously, you mentioned half a dozen different options. If I don't really have much of a budget, I'm trying to save as much money as I can, is there a particular DAW that you would recommend that I get into if I'm trying to get into that world?
I'd probably point you towards Logic. Logic is probably one of the cheapest DAWs with the most functionality, and all of the plugins that it has, they work great.
Oh, it's a great starting point.
They're good. Like, all the plugins are good competitors to ones that you can buy, and they're all free.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I love Logic. I'm a Logic fanboy, way over Pro Tools as far as that goes. Obviously, Logic also does have the flaw that it is Mac only, right? It's only available on Apple computers, being it that it's made by Apple. If I'm running a PC, the better computer, what kind of DAW would you point people towards?
Yeah, so I think that Pro Tools is a great option, and so is Ableton. Now, something that can be considered just for cash flow purposes, and I don't believe, unless you know something, I don't think Ableton has an option for like a monthly setup, but Pro Tools does. So
Sure.
that's pretty neat. And for cash flow, that might be actually super helpful for your church. And so you can, I think it's like $35 monthly, or you can do like an annual monthly, and it's a little cheaper. But those are both great options when it comes to a DAW that would work on a PC and also a Mac, because Mac is, you know, the superior brand. So
You're allowed to be incorrect every once in a while.
Yeah, that's all right.
So let's say I'm not in an environment where I have the space or the privacy to be able to use studio monitors. If I have a very small space that I'm working in, or an office or something like that, headphones are often an option that a lot of people are going to. It's more ideal to be using studio monitors if you have the space. But if you don't, is there a relatively inexpensive option you point people towards for headphones?
For sure. And it's funny, right? Because you say that. I mean, really, you could be, if your board has USB on it, chances are you're right by the sound guy, right next to the soundboard, and you're not having a pair of studio speakers
right.
in front of you there in the church. But yeah, headphones are great. And actually, I know there's a lot of people actually that are producing mixes on headphones. Now, it is important, just like we talked about with speakers, a lot of speakers are designed to sound better, right? And they make headphones, though, and usually they're referred to like as a studio headphone. And I know like Audio-Technica is a great brand. I know they make several different levels. I think there's one that's about $150. I think it's M50 something, but that's a great pair. I know we have a pair that we use here in the studio for that, and I know Jonny has a pair of Audio-Technicas that he uses.
Biodynamics, also a great brand. They have a pair, $150, DT990, and they're also really comfortable, and they sound great. They're nice and flat. That's a good option too.
I feel like comfortability on headphones is just as important as the sound quality. You're gonna wear
if you're wearing them.
Yeah, if you're wearing them for a long
you're gonna
time.
be sitting them there for a while,
Right.
so that service is, you're gonna wear them the whole time. So.
Awesome. I really appreciate both of you guys spending some time to talk through this. I know that this has been a much requested topic of conversation. I think we've talked about a lot about the live stream, the visual aspect, but we've also talked about how important the audio side is to the watchability of your stream. Nobody cares how good your shots look if I'm getting nothing but white noise blasting through the speakers the whole time.
Sure.
So I appreciate both of you for your time today. If anybody watching this video has any further questions and trying to figure out your setup or upgrading to another one, I would highly recommend jumping on the Blackbar Discord. We'll have a link down here. We've got a ton of certified pros on there, other people who are also audio mixers trying to figure out the same problems you are. We can all help each other out. We are all in this together. Thank you very much for watching this episode, and we will see you next week.